Yeah, so as as this is going to be a session where I'd like to solicit reaction from you as well, so please don't hold back. I'm more than happy to take on your comments. So use the chat over there, as just pointed out, and hopefully we can learn together as we go along. Now, I just want to make sure my share is still up there. Sorry, Maddie, my view just changed slightly, so. Just want to make sure you're still seeing my share, yes?
Yes, it's good.
Okay, yeah, my view's just changed. Okay, so as pointed out before, I'm a big believer in first-line workers. Also, sometimes you hear it being referred to as frontline workers. We'll talk to that in a moment. But before we do so, just so that you know who I am, just an introduction. So I've been working on Microsoft Teams from the very onset of Teams. In fact, if we back up the truck quite a bit and you go back to my younger years, I actually spent 10 years at a telco back in South Africa. That's this strange accent you're hearing. It's kind of a blended South African, New Zealand, or as they say, a Kiwi. So it's kind of a South African Kiwi accent. Because I've been in New Zealand for about 15 years now. So I was at a telco for 10 years in South Africa. It was then followed by 10 years, again, something about number 10, 10 years at Siemens, Siemens Enterprise Networks, a German company, which I'm sure you've heard of. And most of the time I was there, I was a technical trainer involved in communication systems, enterprise voice systems. So my background is very, very much voice. When I left South Africa, I came to New Zealand. That was 15 years ago. And I know, how's that possible? The math doesn't add up. I barely look 23, right? But when you see and you look back at the last 15 years, it's been the last sort of few years at Siemens. I had a bit of a play in LCS, and a bit of integration there with back in the day with Exchange 2007, Service Pack 1, unified messaging. Weren't those the days? And then when I got to New Zealand, it was OCS, LCS, Live Communication Server. You know, we had 2007 OCS, we had 2010 of Link, and all the way through to Skype for Business. And now it's all about Teams, isn't it? And it's so much more than just the UC space, isn't that true? And over that time, I have had the privilege of being exposed to many different technologies. I remember in 1999, when SIP was introduced as a concept by Siemens, it was shot down. People said it'll never work. You'll never be able to run voice on an IP network. Well, look where we are now. And today, I work for a company called Generation E. They're based in Australia. They're one of the largest UC players in that space, privately owned. And they've opened up shop in New Zealand, and I'm privileged to be working with them as a modern workplace productivity consultant. And that's really all about me. If you have a look on that slide there, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course I love reviewing products and bits and pieces. And so if you're interested in looking at meeting rooms or headsets or whatever it is, anything that's got anything to do with Teams, I'll be looking at it at some point in time. Right, so what are we talking about today? Today, we're going to be looking at, firstly, what is the definition of a first-line worker or a frontline worker? We're also going to just take a moment, because apparently there's, I think the latest numbers I saw was something like 2.8 billion workers considered to be first-line workers. That's a massive footprint, way more of them than there are, what do we call ourselves, information workers, way more of them than information worker sector, right? And yet, most of the market I've ever been dealing with has been information workers. So there's this massive part of the global population that we haven't even had a time to really process and think about. So who are they? What kind of challenges do they face? What problems do they have that potentially we could look at and come up with ways for them to be more efficient? How can they benefit from all these amazing tools that have come up over the years? Because we know that a lot of sectors have been left behind, and they've got these little disparate bits and pieces of tools, that don't talk to each other, and it just causes latency in terms of productivity. It slows people down in terms of how they get things done, and it's frustrating, isn't it? If you know how to do something more efficiently and then you get back onto the job and it's just a slow process that just doesn't give you any real joy. And so we're going to look at all of those. Now, one thing we're not going to do is I'm not going to bore you with slides. I've got a nice long section on some demos. We'll show you some of the setup, some of the backend config. We'll show you what it looks like on the client side, and a little surprise at the end as well. So let's have a look. Right, who are first-line workers? Well, if you have a part of a business that communicates with customers, that's your first-line workers. Whether it's on a phone, whether it's somebody who's facing people physically, so whether it's like, trading, perhaps cash, that sort of stuff, or even whether it is, producing services. Maybe you're going to provide a service somewhere. That's also considered as first-line workers. So they're the kind of people, just remember this, and this is when the penny drops as to how important these people are. They're the people who know how your business ticks, and they know where the gaps are. They know where all the little issues are. So whether they're a courier driver that's going off to customers, delivering whatever, they know what part of the tracking system doesn't work. They know which parts of their business slow them down, are monotonous, and have room for improvement. And they also know what works well. It's really strange, wouldn't you agree, that in this time that we live in, that folks haven't been able to tap into those first-line workers, those people who see the coalface, the ones who give customers the impression of your business. That's the other key. They're the people who you'll see there that we talk about the face, which is what you see, and then the heart, that's that belief. You've all had that service, haven't you? You've gone to, perhaps it was a restaurant, and there was that waiter or waitress, and they were just on point, super helpful. They were keeping eye contact when you needed them. They were right there. And chances are that you've gone back there, isn't it? That you've really appreciated that service because of that one individual. It's not even their brand. It's not even their business. They're an employee, first-line worker. And they've made it a pleasant experience that stayed with you. On the flip side, isn't it also true that if you've had a poor experience, and it doesn't even matter if you've met the person met the individual in person, or whether it's been on a phone call, perhaps you've called into a contact center and you've explained a frustration or a problem, and the person on the other end perhaps hasn't quite followed protocol, maybe been a bit abrupt with you, or even gotten frustrated and agitated at you. Chances are you probably wanted to put the phone down and change your services to another company. I know that's happened to me. And so you can see how powerful these people can be in terms of their influence, their reach. So it goes to say that it makes a lot of sense that those folks need consideration, and even more so considering the times we live in with COVID and all the limitations and frustrations. Now, I've already touched on most of these. We're talking about healthcare workers. Goodness knows, I think back of the ways in which I've tried to use Microsoft Unified Communications to reach healthcare. It's been really hard. People who sit behind PCs, easy, no problem. But those nurses, those healthcare workers who are moving around between patients, who have their hands full with medical kit, how do you engage them? How do you involve them? And this is where it all comes in, isn't it? So you have a good doctor, you remember. You have a bad one, you remember. It's retail, it's hospitality, it's financial services. Those are the people that leave that impression and who have that smile that draws you in and brings you back. And then the heart, that's the logistics, the construction, the manufacturing, the agriculture. Those are also people that make up this first line workforce. Right, so let's just move on to something else, the challenge. I guess in previous years, the challenge has been everything except that first one, of course. We'll come back to that one. First-line workers typically are disconnected. If you think of retail, imagine there are some staff that work in a retail store and they probably don't even know who's at head office. All they probably know is the local store manager and potentially somebody who brings stock and checks things in on a regular basis. But from a retail perspective, they likely don't even know who is the persons who are responsible for providing stock, for the processes, for all those sorts of things. So there's a disconnect. You've got this workforce that has this working knowledge and this experience of what could really make your product, your service, really good. And yet they're disconnected from the people who can make those decisions. It's odd, isn't it? It is strange. Now, that's that disconnection that we want to address. There's also the problem of no ownership. If you're just a worker, just a number, I'm just the person who puts the product on the shelf, or I'm just the person behind the cashier, behind the cash register there, typing away as people buy product, or I'm just, whatever it is, if you don't bring those people into the fold, make them feel part of something, they will not take ownership. They will not feel personally accountable when things go less than ideal. So again, you can see the value, massive, massive value to be able to bring them in. High staff turnover. Let's be honest. How many of us started out in, I don't know, flipping burgers or at a McDonald's, or perhaps at a pizza den or a Pizza Hut, and we were perhaps a delivery person? Many, many, many of us. And in fact, when you look at those numbers, you'll notice that they have very, very high staff turnover. So much so that I did work for a supermarket, a really large supermarket chain. And instead of, it was too cumbersome for them to name accounts according to the individuals. And so they named them by roles. Packer 1, Packer 2, night shift packer, Butcher 1, Butcher 2. It was crazy. When you look, I couldn't understand it. And then when we were busy with the deployment and we're doing bits and pieces, and I was saying, well, the problem is you got Butcher 1 and there are 3 people filling that role, and so 3 people are sharing a profile. So we've got password lockouts, we've got all sorts of problems that we're going to get because of that. And they explained to me that because Butcher 1, Butcher 2, and Butcher 3 are in the industry they're in, they tend to move around and they got big turnovers. So they'll rather deal with the fact that they have these 3 people sharing passwords. You can imagine passwords under the keyboard, but you can imagine the problems that came with that. And so that high staff turnover, how do you turn that around? How do you make Butcher 1 really proud of the product that he turns out? How do you make him feel like he really has, or she has, an influence, an impact on the end result? Wouldn't you say that, when they come up with a great suggestion, goes up to head office looks at it and goes, that's actually a good idea. You know what? We're going to implement that not only in your store, but we're going to roll that out elsewhere as well. Boom. They feel connected. They have ownership. They belong. And that's the key here, isn't it? And then there's legacy tools. Oh, my goodness. Step into any traditional type of store where they have people on a roster, for example. And where do you find the shifts? On an Excel spreadsheet. Hopefully it's in one of those little plastic covers so it doesn't get too munted as people touch it. And anyone wanting to swap out any of their shifts, they're going to have to go and scratch on there and that sort of stuff. If you're not able to get into the office, to the tea room to see the shift roster, well, you got a problem, don't you? And you can't send them an Excel spreadsheet because it's going to get updated and twisted and changed, and it's a nightmare. So much so that I worked with an organization, a hospital, and they had a person who managed all their temporary nurse staff, 400 nurses that they had to manage. And the roster, they would work out and send out instructions to these private nurses, each of them on on their own little personal device. You won't believe it. It was text messaging. It was the only way that they could get it done, that they could see, hence why we got involved. But you can imagine the pain that would have been. Remember, the shift starting on a Monday morning, and on a Sunday evening, you get 2, 3, 4 persons texting you going, I'm not going to make it tomorrow, I'm sick. And then now you've got to rush around on a Sunday evening, texting around, trying to find who can take that shift, and then going back and tracking it. And it's just an absolute nightmare. And that's just one aspect of a legacy tool. There are so many other tools that are legacy and disconnected. Paper-based tools. A cleaning company I work with, they had this paper-based system where staff had to go in and check the resources in each public facility. Rolls of toilet paper, soap. They had to take things like breakage and report that back. It was all manual. And the turnaround time it took to get back to top those things up, to send a plumber out to fix the leaking faucet, all that kind of stuff was very, very painful. You can see there is massive opportunity here to modernize communications for first-line workers. So that's the challenge in this COVID. COVID has the frontline workers, first-line workers, they're the people who potentially got hit the worst from a work perspective. As different countries and areas went into lockdown, they're the people who couldn't work. They're the people who couldn't get paid. And when they did start returning to work, they're the people who got most exposed. You can imagine that that could have been, that would have been a very difficult time for them. So certainly COVID's been a massive challenge. Let's learn something from it. Let's learn from all of these challenges, and let's start to build a new future, something that empowers our frontline workers, that praises them, that raises them up high and helps them feel proud of what they do. So how are we going to do that? Well, we've got to rethink the way we do stuff. We've got to rethink how we do our business processes. We've got to rethink what we do to keep people productive. Were you ever part of an organization that felt unless they could see you, you probably weren't working? I was. It doesn't make sense. There are so many measures to be able to measure somebody's productivity without playing policeman. Isn't that true? And so that has to be rethought. We've got to look at powerful tools that are there that can deliver secure experiences without making people go to the tea room to see whether they're on the roster. That sort of thing, right? And when we do this in a safe way, well, it's going to protect your business assets. It's going to protect your business IP. I did some work with a bank, interesting, and they had no mechanism for the staff, the frontline staff on the counters to be able to communicate. They just didn't have systems for them. And those people normally don't have, again, they don't have their own profiles. They have a profile for a teller number, and that was what they had. So they took it upon themselves to start up another technology for chat, WhatsApp. They used in the back end, which was great. It was, for their purpose. However, there was that little concern from the bank's perspective about security, about leaking information, about what kind of comms are in there. From an IT perspective, they had lost, we call it shadow IT, right? They'd lost control of that. And so they had to quickly find a way to bring in something they could control, but do it in such a way that they could help those users to benefit and not go looking for something else, but also explain to them why it was important that they followed this method. And it protects your staff as well, doesn't it? I mean, if you're using the technology like WhatsApp, when do you go off shift? When do you say, hey, I'm on leave now, stop messaging me? How do you do that? How do you make sure that if there is any abuse potentially, we see that in some industries, in some instances, if anything unfair happens, how do we make sure that all of that bubbles through to a protected staff member so that you can put some measures and constraints in place? Well, really, we're talking about teams here. We're talking about first-line workers, and Teams has a special area developed, special department at Microsoft, you could say, where they really are growing the entire first-line worker ecosystem, starting from the licensing with the F licenses, right through to unique profiles that allow you to control and lock down what the client looks like and what is in there. Even things like changing the way that we're logging in, because potentially your first line worker does have a device that just happens to be shared by 3 or 4 different people. So it's no longer username centric. It's now device oriented. So how do you manage that? Microsoft's been onto it for probably, I reckon it's about 4 years now, that first-line workers have been on the up developing. It's getting to a point now where I'm beginning to see a lot more organizations go, oh, really? That looks really interesting. And so we're doing lots of pilots and seeing a lot of happy first-line workers and back-end, So if you look over here, we've got these 3 keywords: communicate more, connect, and automate. Those are the low-hanging fruit, I would say. It's easier to communicate, to set up communication hubs through Teams, obviously. It's easier to get people connected and to surface things like Planner so that they can be assigned tasks and so on. And automation, huge automation. Things like using approvals and that sort of stuff to be able to help people to get stuff done faster and more efficiently and with traceability. So you can certainly see that it's a changed way of thinking, isn't it? Right. Okay. So I want to get into a demo and just show you the day in a life of a first-line worker. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up my AirPlay 7. I'll just drag it onto the side over here. Give me a moment while I switch device. I got too many devices over here. So what I'm going to do is just connect with my iPhone over here, and I'm just using AirPlay software. I've just this Air server, and it's just a trial version at the moment because I only need it for the next 10 minutes or so. Right. So what I'm going to do is bring up Teams. And you've got Teams over there, so that it looks like I'm looking at you and not on my shared screen. I'm going to be tilting my head down here. So yeah, we have, and if you've not seen my profiles before, you'll see this is Wolf. If you're a trekkie, you may appreciate this. And straight away, as I've gone in here, what I've done is down the bottom, you'll see I've got shifts, I've got walkie-talkie, tasks, chat, Teams. The admin person, me, has pinned those down there, and you can block apps, you can add apps, you can surface them just like you want. Now, I'm starting out with shifts here. I've got shifts, and just by signing in straight away, we're on shifts. That's the default place. You can see that Wolf has a shift on the 23rd of March, which is today at 5. And yeah, I don't think he's checked in on that. Now I can tap on that to expose more information. It's given me the opportunity to swap. It's too late for that. Can you agree? I can swap it out with somebody. If I do that, I potentially won't use that shift. Maybe we'll go to, let's go look at all the shifts. So there's a few more shifts over there. You can see he's got the late shift, say Thursday. So I'm going to take the Thursday shift. I'm going to go, hey, you know what? I'm going to swap that with somebody. And now I can choose who I want to swap it with. So I'm in this team called security. So what I've done in the back end, I've created a security team, and that team's got all my security staff in, and I've broken them up into a few groups. Now, of course, I can change that to another team, maybe customer services. It's only showing me the teams that Wolf is part of. So I'll stick with security, and this is a security shift. And there are the other people he can change or request to swap out with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with, let's go with, yeah, you know what, let's swap it out with Paul. And he can give a reason as well. Need time off, perhaps. Oh, there we go. Good old spell checker helped me out. And I go done. Now, what it did, I don't know if you saw that. It was really quick, eh? It did a little spinning wheel, and it sent out a message to Paul on his device and said, hey, there's a request from Wolf to swap shifts. And you'll see it at the bottom there, it says pending. And until Paul acknowledges that, it'll stay pending. So I'll just jump into Paul's profile over here. Do I have it? I do. There it is. Okay. Go on. While Paul's, there we go. Wolf wants to swap a shift with you. So I've got that there, and I'm going to go, you know what? I'll approve it. So I'm accepting it on my other device, which you're not seeing. Look at that. It just turned to approve. Boom. How cool is that? Remember that example I spoke of earlier with that person who is managing all those nurses? What? This would have solved his problem easy peasy. You could have taken the rest of the year off. Now, that was swapping out a shift. I can also take a shift and I can offer it. I can go, hey, look, I can't do it. I don't actually know who's going to be interested, but I could go and offer it to a bunch of people over here. I'm not going to do that, but you get the idea. It's very, very powerful. Now, within here, I'm still just on this page, and you'll see that there's day notes. I've got no day notes in this case for this day. So you can put on day notes like, hey, the guys who are doing the fire alarm are coming around today. They should be there at about 12. If anybody sees them, just greet them and let them in, or, whatever it is. And then you'll see there I've got a shift note. So what's really nice about shift notes is you can add them to different shifts with different notes. So I've got there, make sure to lock up after the last day shifter leaves, because this is the 5 to 2 a.m. shift, right? And I've even added some activities. Now, there's sweep floors for stragglers. So check the building if there's any stragglers. And when I've planned the shifts in the back end, I've just created these activities. So what happens when Wolf is in here? He can go there and go, yep, okay, I've got all of that. It's assigned to me. And he can go, this is just viewing, right? He can go back to the main page here, and he can look at tasks, and he'll see assigned to him. And here it is, deep clean crew check. And there are those tasks down the bottom there. Get them to sign in. Okay, I've done that. I'll check that. Okay, unlock only the areas as on the contract. Yep, I've done that. Okay. No, haven't done the rest yet. And there is, I think there was a see all checked items, right? Sign them out, lock up, take photos of evidence. See that one over there? Oh, okay. So I've got to go and do an attachment, take a photo. All right. And I'll go and I'll take a photo, boom. And that photo is not stored on the phone, by the way. No, because it's company IP, isn't it? What's happened? Look at that. It's uploading it into Teams, into this task. The manager's got access to this. Boom, he can go and have a look. He can see that the job's been done. And perhaps Wolf adds a comment and goes, hey, I didn't like doing that. So you get the idea. This is powerful stuff, people. This is powerful stuff. So back to shifts, there are requests. So there aren't any at the moment. That's if somebody's put forward and gone, hey, I've got a shift that I wanted to put on offer. We've got time clock. Time clock's very, very cool as well, because this is where you can clock into your shift. So what I've done with time clock as well is, you can click on it. You've got to click and hold, and it'll start. And there we go. And then when you take a break, you can take a break. And all it does really is it keeps time of when you remember the old manual clock-in cards, check-in, check-out cards. This is to remove that, so you don't need that anymore. But you can also geofence this. So you can also put this in such a way that they have to be within the vicinity of where they're supposed to be. Now, today, you can only geofence a single location. So when you get on site to your work area, you can clock in, and then when you're done, you can clock out. If you're in a type of a role where you're moving from site to site and you're having to clock in, clock out, that's a different case. I know there are third-party tools that do that today. All I can say is I know Microsoft. Watch this space. But nothing stops you from creating a shift roster for that time period that the person needs to be at each site. And it's really easy because it's like an Excel form to create those rosters. Now, we did touch on tasks. I skipped over Walkie-Talkie. I'll come to that in a moment. And over here, you'll see in the security team, we've got some, tasks and the important ones and so on that we've got in here, but I haven't assigned anything in that way. But if I go to security, there aren't any in there. Okay, well, we already checked the assigned to me, so we've been in there. And if there are more in here, they'll be surfaced there. I only created just that one for the sake of the demo. I'm going to jump over to Walkie-Talkie. Now, I was playing with this before, and my son is 9 years old. He absolutely loves this feature. He takes this little Android phone over here, and it's really an old phone. I've got Teams on it, and it's got a message there saying, space is running out. It's an absolute dog. But guess what? Oh, as soon as I can put the code in, it will run Teams as an F1 user, and it'll do walkie-talkie no problem at all. So I'll just close the go on. It's telling me, hey, you need to boost the memory. This thing's dying. I know. What I'll do, though, is I've got a few other users on it as well. Now, when you're in walkie-talkie, I'll just explain something very interesting. Walkie-talkie, I guess, is something that hasn't been explained very well in the past, in my opinion. I've read up about it and gone, hey, what do they mean? So how it actually works is it's a broadcast call, right? So if you look at my screen over there, you'll see I am in the security team, but I'm in a channel called Eagle. So I've got two channels over there. You'll see there's my structure. I've got Eagle and Falcon, and of course my general. And so we're in Eagle at the moment, so you can change that. And when you come onto duty, you connect, basically turning on your radio, you could say. So this is like replacing that two-way radio system without the interference or the risk of getting, I guess, compromised. Now, as soon as you log in there, you can see a little 2 with a little head count. That shows me that there are 2 other people, or there are at least 2 people that are currently in there. And what I might do, this Android phone will play nice. Go on, you. Oh dear, it's dying. Okay, never mind. There's Wolf, and then there's Paul who's in there as well, which is my other device, which is all good. So you're going to hear that anyway. And I'm connected, they're connected, we can chat in this channel. It's just a channel, right? The fact that we're both connected to this, I just have to tap and hold, and we may get some feedback. Hello, test, test. Hello. Hello, test, test. Hello. Right, you heard that. My iPad's actually still locked, by the way. I haven't unlocked it yet. Yeah, it's still locked. So even if your phone goes locked, you stay signed in, the device will respond. So there's no, of course, if you turn the volume down, you're not going to hear that. But you get that feedback straight away. So how do you respond? Well, the person on the device on the other end, whoever wants to respond, because it's a broadcast, when you're broadcasting, you're pressing and holding on their end, their little button that you're seeing on the screen there turns white, and it shows you their profile picture. And it says they're talking, so you can tell who's talking. And then you can reply. When the channel is clear, you can then press and hold. If you press and hold and they're talking, it just throws an error on top and says somebody else is already talking. So it's quite good that way. And you can then press and hold the button down, which then broadcasts back. So think of this. Where would we see this as being useful? Well, I think of things like somebody spilled milk in aisle 3, right? We need a cleaner to get there real quick. Traditionally, they'd have a PA system perhaps in a store, and they'd make an announcement and hope somebody takes ownership. But this way, you reach the right people. You don't have to tell the customers about the spilled milk, no pun intended. But it still gives you the opportunity then to get the right people to respond and to track who's responding. That's really cool, don't you think? And I've got a total of 4 devices here that I've been playing with. Of course, as my son's been helping me, some of those are no longer up and running. So it goes to figure. He kept telling me, hey, Dad, this one keeps signing out, because he kept venturing too far away from the Wi-Fi network. So that's important. It's still an online feature. It still needs Wi-Fi, right? So that's pretty good. Hey, so there's also a bunch of other features coming very, very soon. And they're around shifts. There is today, and I'll just bring it up. Today, shifts on the desktop looks like, I'll bring my client across. This is shifts on your desktop over there. And I've created some shifts for you. There is Wolf that we were talking about just before with these shifts. You can see the shift's been moved. I didn't move that. There was, look at that. It shows you it was moved. So it's total traceable. We can export stuff over here. There's the clock in also for the desktop user. We can see any other settings in here. So, I mean, you can take a shift, and just like in Excel, you can copy and paste it, drop it somewhere else. You'll see it's got a little little bubble over there that tells you it hasn't actually been shared. And that tells you that you want to share that. I can share that, and it'll say, hey, do you want to share with the whole team that one change that it's just picked up? You go, no, only share it with the one person. And what will happen is we'll see, where's Wolf? You heard him just get a buzz. We'll go back to Wolf over there. Oh, no, we've got to use this device, activity. And you'll see there, shared a new work schedule. There it is. There's a swapped shift. There it all is. It's all traceable. Everything's traceable. And so that's really, really cool. I do love that aspect of it. The ability to do walkie-talkies come into desktop. Oh, yes. And it shouldn't be too far away. So that's going to be really good. And also the ability to import shifts is already there. You can import them from Excel. There's a certain format and that sort of stuff. You can copy a schedule. You can do all sorts. So very, very powerful. And over here, a lot of folks don't realize you can be the shift manager for different channels, So you just swap over. You'll see I've got different people in here. This one's kind of empty. If I go back here to security, and I'm just keeping an eye on the time over there, it's as easy as, I can add more of these groups just by adding group. I can add people to each group like that. You can have, like, Wolf is in both of these because that's like a morning shift team, and this is like an afternoon shift team potentially. So you can move them around, all that kind of stuff. Very, very powerful indeed. Right, and that's most of our demo. There is something else I want to get to as well. I'm just going to click through it so we can get there, folks, because I did show you already the way to use tasks. This device over here, and I'll just play it for you so you can see. This device over here, if you haven't seen it before, this is called the HM1 from Realware. And I just happen to have one over here. And it's very, very cool. I'll just have a quick look over here. It's got this little lens right in front of your face. So you'll notice I've taken my glasses off. And the primary reason for that is that as soon as I look into this little screen, it's projected to a level where, for some reason, my eye doesn't need a lens. I don't know what they've done there. It's probably that perception of depth. And for some reason, the unit's just sleeping at the moment. It's because it's been, oh, there it is. There we go. Right. And it's voice activated. So I can go, my programs, select my programs, select 10. So 10 is Teams, by the way. I just want to change it so I can see properly here. My chats. Select option 2. You know what that is? I'm joining the meeting. And now it says meeting in progress. Select option 2. Select 2. I'm not consistent with that. Right, so I've selected to join the meeting. And so it'll join, and I'll turn the video on in a moment. There we go, connecting to the room. Oh, of course, I may not be able to, but depending on... Bit of echo, eh? Didn't think that through. I'll just disconnect today. What I will do is turn the video on. Turn on video. Right. Terminate call. And there you go. It's very cool. It's very, I don't know, Robocop or something. It does look a bit odd. The camera's built into here, and it's got a flashlight as well. If I set flashlight on, may or may not turn on depending on the menu I'm in. You can pair a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse to it, which is easier to navigate. It's fully Android driven, and you can add a whole bunch of apps to it as well. I used it, interestingly, with an organization that were building homes in New Zealand, and they were just about to get a team of folks over here from Japan to come and Q&A their homes and to make sure they went to plan. COVID, lockdown, not going to happen. Bought a bunch of those, and they had these builders on site wearing these things, and they were moving around with someone in their ear telling them what to do. It was incredible to see. Very, very space age. Early days, but watch this space. Now, that's not the only product that's available in this space. Yeah, some of the newer stuff that's come out recently, we've got this sort of, it's a bit odd, eh? Doesn't it look like you've kind of taken old technology and glued it to new technology? I've got something just like that over here as well, that kind of fits that bill as well in the form of a handset. But what it is there's a button on this device, on the Klein Vela, and what it does is it's your push-to-talk button. So you push it and you hold it in, just like you did in the traditional sort of walkie-talkie scenario. Then we've got this little adapter over here, same thing, a little push-to-talk piece, and then the volume up and volume down, and the little clips and things, and that pops into your phone. This one over here, again, I've been very fortunate. I got one of those, and I also have one of these. And they're team certified. They're made by Blue Parrot, who is now part of Jabra. And very cool. This device apparently is so popular they can't keep up with stock, especially with truckies. Apparently they love this thing. I've had to play with it. It's got like some serious battery power, 24 hours talk time. It's got that push to talk button, and that's what makes it so powerful. And the same with a little over the ear one. I got that one as well, had a little play with it. It's just incredible. Works on Android as well as iOS. I just demoed to you on iOS, so you get the idea. And then, of course, we're seeing like the Samsung X-Cover Pro, this device here, with a built-in push-to-talk button as well, as you can see over there. So you can certainly see that that has a whole new ecosystem of use cases that have come to the fore. Think of things like broadcasting for staff at a hospital without having to go over a PA system, and you can reach them regardless as long as they've got network connectivity. So a very interesting concept, and time will tell how well it is taken up by the market. This is a RealWear demo. I'm not going to get into that. You can find that on YouTube. It's a RealWear demo from them. What you will see, though, is that the RealWear unit does come with few different wearing styles. I prefer the cap. That's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, so just getting to the sort of final stretch over here, we looked at how we can use first-line workers' experience, their unique position in a business, their unique perspective, and the way they interact with our customers and with each other, with departments. We know that if we include them, we value their input, and we take on board their experiences, that not only will they feel like they're part of something, they will also start to be proud of what they do. And we only touched on just a few items, just a few. I mean, we could deliver training to them. We could surface Viva through the client. There's all sorts. We can actually, I did have a demo of that as well, to deliver up some training videos and that sort of stuff, or to use forms to collect information from them. There is so much you can do that we haven't even scratched on. And this is all part of the modern ecosystem, modern workplace for first-line workers. It's secure, and it certainly is built to help include and incorporate. It's not about trying to figure out a new way to make people work. It's trying to figure out what doesn't work and making it better, making it, improving it. Business processes, watch that space to be changed. That's really the end of me there. I'll just go on over to my last slide over here, which is the question and answer section. And I'll give you the opportunity, if anyone does have any questions or anything like that, I'm more than happy to hear. I'm just going to pop over into the chat to see if I see anything. No? All right, awesome. Well, hopefully we're going to be seeing lots of organizations take up first-line workers. The benefits are huge. The licenses are tiny. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along today. This is our feedback call, please. If you could, please do provide us with some feedback. and show the love, share the love. I know I will.
Yeah.
Thanks, Manny. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Paul. A great session, and I just opened the mics and cameras for everyone. So if you have a question, you can just open your mic and ask a question from Paul. I have just one question for the end, but I reserve it for the last one.
I'll stop. I'll stop sharing then. Yeah.
Well, maybe I should just. You started the session about how people were transformed over WhatsApp, using WhatsApp as kind of a frontline worker tool, and I see that a lot. That WhatsApp is there. It's even for the desktop workers. The WhatsApp is there, kind of having a quick conversation. How you can convince those frontline workers which don't have a company device to transform over from WhatsApp to Teams?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, and it's a two-pronged approach. So there's the what's in it for me perspective. So that was the first thing. So one of the things I asked was, what didn't they like about WhatsApp? And you know what they didn't like is it's really hard to find information. So if you've asked for some information or a screenshot, or somebody's posted about something or given you a link or a number, or you have to scroll back and you can't really find, it's really, really hard to find. And so I said to them that does highlight that potentially there's a better way to do that. And what if we could do it without annoying the parent company? What if we could do it in a way that was safe, that was secure, and that didn't put anyone at risk of exposing the company? Because WhatsApp, from a managerial perspective, really hard to manage. It's really hard to do that. And so there was I'm doing my duty as an employee. I understand the risk, and therefore I want to do the right thing. And then there was what's in it for me, and then we even went a bit further and went, what other things would you like to see? Would you like access to through this? Because this is so much more than WhatsApp. Yeah, that's the approach we took, and it was, you always get some resistance, but once the penny drops, once somebody sees like, hey, did you see? So find those champions, get the adoption and change piece is big, isn't it? Find those champions, get them excited, and they sell it for you. Yeah. Thanks for that question, Manny.
Summarize this, that it's all about leadership.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. In a word, much more direct than I said. Yeah. Well.
Question, and there is a link for the feedback in the chat as well. So teamsnation.rocks/feedback. You can use that, of course, throughout the day, but we are really happy to get feedback for our speakers, and of course from the event as well. So you can always improve. Thank you.
Thank you very much.